Hey everybody, it's Kaylee Just here with the Philosophy Study. So I did a little intro about the Philosophy Study. We talked about wisdom in the previous short recording. And so now we're going to go to Waking Life. It's October 23rd, 2024. So we went through half of the chapters. I think they get shorter though for the last half. So we'll see how much we get through. We've got 2 hours until our meeting is done today, so we'll get through as much as we can. And if we have to do another one, we'll do another one. All right. So we're halfway through the film, right? Waking Life, technically. And so in this chapter, there's two guys talking about the nature of film in itself. And so one of them is a filmmaker, Kaveh Zahedi, and the other one is a poet, David Jewell. So this one's called The Holy Moment. So it says, cinema in its essence is, well, it's about an introduction to reality, which that, like reality, is actually reproduced. And for him, it might sound like a storytelling medium, really. And he feels like literature is better for telling a story, you know? And if you tell a story or even a joke, this guy walks into a bar and he sees a dwarf. That works really well because you're imagining this guy and this dwarf in this bar, and there's a kind of imaginative aspect to it. But in film, you don't have that because you actually are filming a specific guy in a specific bar with a specific dwarf and a specific height who looks a certain way. So like for Bazin, what the ontology of film has to do with is has to deal with, you know, with what photography also has an ontology of, except that it adds a dimension of time to it and this greater realism. And so like, it's about that guy at that moment in that space. And you know, Bazin is like a Christian. And so he like believes that, you know, God obviously ended up like everything. He believes for him, reality and God are the same. You know, like what film is actually capturing is like God incarnate creating. And this very moment, God is manifesting as this. And what the film would capture, if it was filming us right now, would be like God at this table, God is you, God is me, and God looking the way we look right now and saying and thinking what we're thinking right now, because we're all God manifest in that sense. So film is actually like a record of God or the face of God or ever-changing face of God. You have a mosquito. He's lots of mosquitoes. Okay, so there's a couple of points. We'll just do it one chunk at a time here. So I think that the first point is this capturing, well, the first is reality is reproduced. And so I think that reproduction in film makes sense, but just we don't want to interpret this like reality is a reproduction of something else, you know? And philosophically, we can talk about Kant's phenomena and noumena. So we see phenomena, or we perceive or sense phenomena, but the thing in itself is the thing that exists independent of me seeing it. And you can never know what that is because you only know things in experience through your sense perception, right? So you can never know a thing in itself. You always know something through you seeing it, right? And so to say that the thing in itself, the noumena or reality, is a reproduction, that's weird. You could say that film is a reproduction of reality. Mm-hmm. Sure, that's fine. But just the way that this is written, cinema is an introduction to reality. Reality is reproduced. So we just want to make sure we clarify that, right? Yep.
I could read the next part if you want to.
Okay, I'm just going to finish discussing these two paragraphs, and then it's your turn. And then he talks about the nature of storytelling, right? And in literature, or like written narrative, that imaginative aspect works well because for different people, they'll imagine their own almost subjective version of the story, right? So it has a lot of almost utility. It's very applicable, right? But you, as the writer, you don't really need to worry about, you almost don't need to worry about certain details. So you could criticize Tolkien in the amount of details that like Tolkien put a lot of details in the environment and like really described things, you know? And there may be a level where certain degrees of descriptions aren't even really necessary because the person will impose their own, you know? And it might be just too much. You might be taking away from that subjective element of the person projecting their own stuff onto the story. And then I think what he's saying about film is interesting. I like that because you're filming the specific person in the specific place, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you almost, I think the way that like casting for films, you know, I usually will watch a movie because of two primary factors: who directed it and who's in it, the actor.
Mm.
So there was recently a film, it came out this year or last year. It's called Knox Goes Away. Michael Keaton is in it, right? And he plays like a guy who's having dementia. And the story, he was like an assassin or a hitman that gets dementia, right? So they kind of like grab people with this assassin thing. They're like, look at, there's guns. But then the film is really just about this old man who's confused, right? But I watched it not because of any of that stuff, because of Michael Keaton, because I believe that he will be able to demonstrate something as an artist, if you want to call him that, right? An actor or whatever. Yeah. And so when you're thinking about making a movie, you can have an idea in mind, but it's almost like you need to know who you're filming first. Like if I was a director, I'd be like, yeah, I have ideas, but I need to meet the person, because the direction is through them. And some people, you almost have to be kind of a psychologist to be a good actor, because you have to emulate what that person's going through, such that the other person watching you are like, wow, like that's what anger is, or that's what like feeling whatever, you know what I mean? That's what it's like to be in that situation.
Which is so interesting about acting, because it's playing pretend, but if you can tell that someone's playing pretend, they're not playing it right.
Yeah.
And it's like, who are we to judge any movie, right? From, okay, let me hold on 1 second.
I'm listening.
So, right, like let's say when we're watching a Marvel movie, people are saying like the plot didn't go where it was supposed to go. Like everyone has all these expectations of a thing that doesn't yet exist and is not at all similar to our reality. It's a world entirely different, but we somehow carry our own like human expectations even into totally surreal worlds. So I think it's so interesting, because it's like I don't even know if it's reality reproduced, maybe reality modified, maybe imagination manifested, something like that. But
reproduction, yeah. I would say is incorrect. It would be more represented. Representation is kind of a key word in philosophy, you know, and that's fine, because it doesn't have to be 100% accurate.
Yeah,
it's just a placeholder.
It's rarely not.
Yeah, it can't be, unless you're like the World Trade Center. Like there's fictional and nonfiction. Like film, I'm filming myself right now.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whatever. And yeah.
But that's even a perspective. That's not reality.
But I'm not even really acting though. In this context, it's about it's the fictional narrative. And there is a place in the realm of storytelling. Like storytelling, I think it goes a little too far when they say everything is a story. 1 + 1 is 2. That was a great story. It's like, come on, just chill out. You know what I mean? And postmodernists will just say that it's all a story and it's all bullshit in some ways. You know, there's no truth. And I'm like, okay, maybe not. You know, I'm still breathing. It's true. You know, like there is something out there that is real. It's not just a fabrication that humans just blanket on everything. Okay. So, and then the ontology of film, the dimension of time. So that's interesting. I think that like, if you're thinking about film, it's good to start with photography, almost like a comic book panel, and think about the shot. Like what perspective are you taking, you know, and not just be like, just like showing stuff like with the CG stuff, like the computer generated graphics, and a lot of green screen. It can be done well and it can be really bad, you know, because sometimes with the advent of new technology, they're just trying to pump out and get sales. And then the quality of films goes down, because before they couldn't rely on that in the 80s and stuff like that, or the early 90s. They had to have a different way to entertain people. And it was like the way you would think, like it's a genuine good story or whatever, you know? Okay, so where are we here? And he talks about God here. Okay, so this is a different thing, right? So we're making a little shift here. And you know, like God and reality being the same, that's pantheism. I'm cool with that, or nature, you know. And again, when we say the word God, like I was watching this debate yesterday with Dillahunty, this guy who was in Austin, Texas, I think, and he's an atheist, and he's like, you're not going to get agreement on what God is. So when people say that all different religions, they all basically are saying the same thing, he's like, no, they're not. He's like, look at what they're saying. They're defining God very differently, you know? And he's like, if you go down to a church down the street and go to the exact same pew, right? Two people sitting beside each other, and you ask them a few questions, they're going to have a different view of what God is. You're not going to really get consensus. You know what I mean? And so in this context, reality and God are the same. So that's how this guy, Bazin, Bazin, yeah. Is defining it. And you could have that view, you know what I mean? Like a godly view of film. And that's like, I would say, an artistic kind of a perspective, which is fine. I'm not gonna disparage somebody if they want to take that perspective, right? Okay, so Jarrell, you were starting here.
I got it. Or I shouldn't say like that. There's a question mark. I should say, I got it.
Yes.
Okay, go.
Yeah, you got it.
And like the whole Hollywood thing is just taking film and trying to make it like the storytelling medium where you take these books or stories and then you and then you have the script and you try to find a person who sort of fits the thing. But it's ridiculous because it's not. It shouldn't be based on the script. It should be based on the person, or the thing. And in that sense, they are almost right to make this whole star system because then it's about that person, instead of like the story.
Yeah. So I spoke of that before. That's very good. Yeah. Truffet always said the best films. Truffal?
Yeah, I don't think it's Truffet.
Okay, Truffal.
Sorry.
That's okay. Let me. Always said the best films aren't made. The best scripts don't make the best films because they have that kind of literary narrative thing that you're almost sort of a slave to. The best films are the ones that aren't tied to that slavishly. So I don't know. The whole narrative thing seems to me like obviously there's a narrativity to cinema because it's in time, just the way that there's narrativity to music. But you don't first think of the story of the song and then make the song. It has to come out of that moment. And that's what film has. It just has that moment, which is holy, like this moment. It's holy, but we walk around like it's not holy. We walk around like there's some holy moments and there are other moments that are not holy, right? But this moment is holy, right? And if film can let us see that, like frame it so we can see, this moment, holy, and like holy, 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 moment by moment. Like who can live that way? We can't go like, wow, holy, because if I were to look at you and I really just let you be holy, I don't know, I would like stop talking. So let's just comment really here, very quick. So this is going back to our previous film, The Peaceful Warrior. Jarrell, have you seen that one yet?
No.
Okay, so that's like, and on the list. It's Natalia's favorite film, and that movie is about Buddhism in certain ways, and the main character Socrates is trying to teach Dan, who's an athlete, to be present, right? And he's one of the quotes from the film of the principles is. What's one of the best quotes about the moment?
Yes.
There are no ordinary moments.
Oh yeah. Right.
Remember? Yeah. And so that's like saying the moment is holy, is that there's something always happening right now that's unique. Like our friends over here are having fun. They're all friends now.
Yeah.
Right? That's beautiful. You know what I mean? That wasn't here last week, Okay. So yeah.
I don't understand why he's saying that you can't let moments be holy. You would stop talking. Okay, stop talking. Like people can have holy moments.
I guess what he's
Saying
I
every
don't-
moment is holy.
Yeah, but he's also saying this one specifically is. And then he's also saying every moment is holy, but also you can't live and have holy moments. That part I don't know if I agree with.
I guess
I think he's arguing with himself.
That's okay. That's fine. I think what he's trying to say is that when you're in awe, like if a moment is holy, let's try to remove the divine, like God, Christian stuff out of it and just kind of appreciate it for what it is, because then you start imposing like this Christian symbology.
What awe is non-denominational.
Yeah. I'm just like, whoa, like it's just whoa, like if like, you can think of shit that would make you feel that way. Like if I just walked in here and there was an elephant just sitting there and just looked at me like this, I'd be like, what? That's crazy. Where did that thing come from? How did you get up here? You know what I mean? Like, just, I think it's out of your, like, I guess, what do we mean by awe now?
Awe,
Like
look,
surprise. Right?
like it could be any moment. You go in the forest, you think about how the whole forest grew up
Mm.
and how the whole forest is like a super organism and it's going to move together. That's amazing to me.
There you go. That's funny.
Yeah.
In the bucket.
I
right
can
there.
have a whole elephant right there. I don't need an elephant.
I guess what he's trying to say is that when we're, sorry, when we're like out at that level of awareness, we're not really engaged. And so your argument would be that's a false dichotomy. He's saying it's either or when you're saying it could be both.
Yeah, what I think he's trying to say is that cinema, basically, it is the perspective created for you, right? It's
Sure,
already been
yes.
assembled. You're not yourself. And now everyone in the audience together can see this moment that is depicted as like holy, and they can all recognize that together. And it's
Yeah.
like, yes, cinema does have this like empathy creation component because we can see someone's perspective and see the moments that are wonderful to them that like, whatever. I'm in the forest, I'm saying, oh my gosh, you're in the forest. You're like, whatever. like that kind of thing. But yeah, where was I going with this?
Well, so I think the next point would be that like what cinema does is it like corrals us. It sticks us in this thing. It's like, I'm going to give you a really comfortable chair, right? And I'm going to position the chair directly in front of this huge screen.
Yep.
And the sound is going to be like blanketing you like a jacuzzi or like a
Yep.
hot tub, you know? And so it's like, go to a movie theater and try not to pay attention. Like that's actually more difficult than paying attention. So what, and like, it's just on one side, you could say that like, there's the ADD, ADHD phenomena. Like some people do have a problem with attention. You know, that's one thing. Then you could say that there's like this social media technology factor where we're not really ever in the moment. We're just like looking at some shit, looking at our phone. You know what I mean? So there's a place, the place for cinema, like what he's saying is to say, pay attention to this. This has value. But that's not really what it does. It has like this big machine fighting this other machine and it just looks cool, right? Like what's the holy moment there? Like it's, I guess it's like the holiness of the battle, you know, because there's a lot of like, I watch like action films too, you know, and like that's part of what it means to be human. But is that, you know, like what is the function of it? Is entertainment. I think entertainment is different than holiness.
Well, does cinema just do entertainment or can it go beyond that?
Well, there you
And
go.
can it go beyond just looking cool?
Yeah. Well, that's the point,
Yeah.
right? And yeah, like I don't like entertainment. Like I was telling somebody,
Really?
I think so. Like I was offended. I told my grandmother, I was like, what did I say to her? I told her about this. I was like, yeah, I'm teaching my philosophy group. She's like, oh yeah, you like that, eh? It's entertainment for you. I was like, no. I was like, I guess so, but no, like it's not actually. Like it's entertainment for me is like, it's like people are bored and they're just like, you know, I'm just human. I'm just here alive and I have nothing to do. So entertain me. And I'm like, oh yeah, look at, and then I go back to being bored again. That's not what it is. Entertainment is like meaningless. It's just hedonistic.
What about communities entertaining each other? Like being spirited on stage and like that's a connection. That's a relationship. That creates thoughts, creates imagination.
Is it entertainment or is it something else though?
Can it be both? Can it be more?
I feel like it could be both.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like it could be both.
That's cool.
Can grieving processes be like entertainment, the bad word for
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
But
I think it can still. I
it
remember I
can.
was saying that too. Like sometimes it's not always sad. Of course,
Yeah.
it is sad for a lot of people, but it's not always sad.
yeah, why are people singing at funerals?
Right.
Like, I
Yeah.
don't know.
It's cultural, I guess.
It's cultural, yes, but like we all must do it for some reason. It must give us some pleasure. And like, I don't know.
I don't know.
Like, like why do you think you had that reaction? Your grandmother.
Because I define entertainment as the cure to boredom, and predominantly it's hedonistic. It's just pleasure based, right? Whereas I feel that there are other modes of activity that are not entertainment. Like I used to live with my grandparents when I was in high school, and we would watch like at the time it was David Letterman on like the late night TV
Mhm.
show or whatever. And that was like entertainment in some ways because it was like, we have nothing else to do. So we're just going to do this, you know, or like back in the day when the phones didn't exist, like 20 years ago, you would just do this thing called channel
This is
surfing.
not 20 years ago.
These phones didn't exist
Yeah.
20 years ago. Yeah.
No. 20
Okay,
years-
a little bit
No, because the
more
old
than that.
iPhone, when did the old
25.
iPhone come out?
2006 was like
19
Oh.
something.
No iPhone?
96.
No,
No, that's the
really?
first
The
iPhone?
first iPhone.
Not the
that came
iPhone,
out-
just
let's Google this.
Right.
what was
Smartphone.
But I think
Smart-
20
no,
years ago. I
not
mean,
even the smartphone, just the
Well,
cell phone.
I would
well,
say
No,
the
smartphone.
BlackBerry has a very different. We have a very different relationship. 2007, the iPhone was introduced. I was
Mhm.
1 year old.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
Great.
So now you don't remember.
fine. So, I guess. Wow.
Mhm.
Okay, right.
That's fine. I'm just saying, like, okay. Anyways, let's just steer the ship back. Let's go back. Okay, so stop talking. So now it's you, Drill. We'll go back to the scripture.
Well, you'd be in the moment. I mean,
Yeah,
the moment is holy.
yeah, but I'd be open, and then I'd look in your eyes and I'd cry. I'd feel like all this stuff that's not polite. I mean, it would make you feel uncomfortable.
That's more than entertainment. All those feelings, more than entertainment.
Yeah. So I think defining entertainment is a thing. You know?
Maybe it's just the word.
No. All right. Make me look it up. I will look it up.
It's a connotation, you know.
I think everyone's definition is different.
Mhm.
Because your grandmother's probably just saying entertainment because
She doesn't mean it.
she doesn't
like,
mean it in that
mockingly,
way, but
or-
I bet maybe, I don't know your grandmother, but maybe she chooses to do nothing. Right? And the fact that you're doing something is entertainment to you because you're putting forth effort into it. You're coming here, you're sitting, you're drinking coffee,
Mhm.
you know, you're watching movies, you're reading books, like you're putting effort. So like you're getting something rather than she just probably just sit and I don't know. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
be like, you know, but knit. Like, you know, older people
Yeah.
just sit and they just do things that are just quiet. But this is like noise and
Okay.
not noise, but you know what I mean.
So I usually use dictionary.com, and then part of being philosophical, that stuff we'll learn in the base of the wizard's tower of philosophy is how to define stuff, right? And so entertainment defined as the action of providing or being provided with amusement or enjoyment, an event, performance, or activity designed to entertain others. That's circular. So amusement or enjoyment, right? And so that's why I said it's hedonistic. It's kind of just based on pleasure. Because like I can stare at that receptacle, like where you plug stuff in, right? And you can say, is this amusing? Like two people. One person can be engaged in Zen meditation, and it's not like meditating is enjoyable, kind of, but it's not, it's more calming. It's not exciting. Like it's not like a peak in your arousal. It's supposed to plateau. And that plateauness of meditating is enjoyable. It's peaceful. It's calm. You know, is it entertaining? There's value to it. I don't know if that's what we mean by entertainment, though.
Hmm.
Like the entertainment industry, if you could frame it that way, right? So that's why, like for me, I guess it's not about amusement or enjoyment. That's part of it, but it's meaningful.
What about the definition, the act of providing people with something to interest them or make them laugh?
Sure, that's fine. Like, I think the laughter component, you know, that makes it in its own category, because some people watch horror movies. Like there's this new series that was based off the recent Batman movie called The Penguin.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, cool. I'm gonna watch this, and like you might like it, but it's like I was not happy with it. As someone that's like takes psychology seriously, they like that one of the characters has to go to Arkham Asylum, which is like a mental health institution, and they just portrayed it in the worst way possible. Like all of the inmates were like dirty, their hair was all gross, and then like it made me upset. I was like, you didn't need to take it. Like it's just bad writing.
But what if it's someone's reality and we don't know?
Well, there's a history in like one of the big criticisms against psychology, right? Like all the things that are bad about psychology, that's what they put there. And so I just was offended by it. I was like, fuck you guys, making psychology look bad, you
But
know?
What I'm saying is, what if psychology is bad to someone because they had a bad experience?
Yeah, for sure.
and that's how they portray the movie because of how they experience it. So it's
Empathy.
bad to them,
Okay.
but it's good to you. But it was bad to them. Doesn't make it good or bad.
And I think even being able to have a conversation about that,
Mm.
it's a function of entertainment. Look, we're coming together, we're talking about
Okay,
it.
yeah, well, I don't even know.
Community,
I don't even know. I'm gonna put that one on the shelf for now,
Okay.
and we'll revisit it again. There's a big shelf.
Okay.
Okay, so what we got here? We're doing things. We were talking about. So okay, so where were you? Make you feel uncomfortable.
Well, you could laugh too. I mean, why would you cry?
Well, cause I don't know. For me, I tend to cry.
Well, is full.
Okay, well, let's do it right now. Let's have a holy moment.
Okay.
So what happens in this part of the film is, and this is a cool aesthetic part, is like there's like this transition from where they're at, and then they like turn into clouds. And so it's this sense of like enlightened awe, I guess you could say, almost in some ways. So that happens, and then I think it's my character says, everything is layers, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, there's the holy moment, then there's the awareness of trying to have the holy moment in the same way that the film is actually the moment really happening, but then the character pretending to be in a different reality. And there's all these layers. And I was in another that holy moment looking at you. Can't be in a holy, you're unique that way, Kaveh. That's one of the reasons why I enjoy you. You could bring me into that. And they turn into clouds and yeah. Okay, so awesome. So that's that. We're going to the next one.
So meta.
All right, so now we're on chapter 12. Society is a fraud. So again, they're not that as long here. So in this one, there's the dudes walking down the street. So these guys are representing antisocial, against society, like the kind of character, right? And there's a sprinkle of conspiracy theory there, like a little bit of paprika. They're like, here you go, not too much, right? And so we want to be mindful of that. And the film is almost in some ways depicting different philosophical orientations, one after another. And it does have a narrative and a general argument for the film. We've talked about that previously. But it also wants to show alternative perspectives. So this would be one of those alternative perspectives, which is refreshing, even though we most likely will disagree with most of it. It's refreshing because it gives us this contrast. And there's this perspective of like contrast, like the only reason why there's meaning in life is because we die, right? If you live forever, I don't necessarily agree, but
I don't agree with that.
that's, yeah. Just type that into meaning is created because of death. And then people will just in Flossy Side chat, they'll like, yeah, they'll say some shit, you know? And that's great. But I think it's important for us to be mindful of alternative perspectives and evaluate. This is the philosophical skill, evaluating what the belief is based on the structure of the belief. So the statements that are being made and how those statements are put together. So, okay, who wants to read? Okay, Natalia, you want to read? No. Iris, you want to read?
Or the other voice if there's two.
Okay, good.
Okay.
If the world that we are forced to accept is false and nothing is true, then everything is possible.
Okay, we got to take we have to take a break every fucking statement here. Okay, so the first, but you guys can read it, but I just have to comment on stuff. So the first, if the world we are forced to accept, let's just, before we even go to the next part of the statement, if the world we are forced to accept, first of all, what's the world?
Yeah.
Is
Who is
the
forcing it?
Yeah, is the world a consensus of what humanity thinks, or do you mean reality? Is the world a human thing, or do you mean Earth, or do you mean like this is what civilization agrees on?
I
Right.
feel like just the way that it's worded is just reality because we're forced by birth. Like we didn't say, yes, mom, I want to come into the world. She birthed us. So technically we're forced into something that we don't even know is
Okay,
real. So,
So-
I feel like that's what it means.
let's go with that. So we can accept that's true. And then they say it's false. So if the world we are forced to accept is false, so that's why I said, what do we mean by world first, right? Because if you're saying reality, well, that can't be false.
I feel like it is false.
All
You
right.
know, I feel like reality is false because you could say, your reality is this, but then I could look at it and be like, no, it's not. Like,
Yeah.
come on now, you're lying.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, you know you're lying, but it's because it's your reality. You gotta make it work
Yeah.
with whatever you got. But it's not It's not real.
But I wouldn't know I was lying.
Right.
Right. So
Hmm.
layers.
So the way I'm going to interpret this is reality can't be false. Actually, it is the thing that exists independent of human beings. So what they're really trying to say here is it's the capitalistic world. That's the world we live in. We live in a social hierarchy, and that's the thing that's false. And we're forced to accept it, like, i.e., Natalia, you have to pay taxes in 6 months. It's like, Kelly, don't bring that up. Don't tell me about that. Right? And so that's the world that we live in. It's this human world, right? But it's just what we agree with. Like in certain areas of the world, I give this example all the time, but like let's say there's like a water shortage. I'll just change the example, right?
There is.
And yeah, and the reason there's a shortage there is because people just haven't invested the money in building a well in that specific area, right? Money went other places, like drugs, for example. Right? There's a cartel, and they're like, we don't give a fuck. We got water. We don't care about you, right? And we're like, we're getting money, and we could do drugs. We don't give a shit about the village, right? And so that's the world. And it's not true that there has to be no water. It's just the fact, and it's not true that because the people in power are taking resources from the surrounding population that it has to be that way. It's false. It's that certain humans have imposed this reality on the people that are there. Even the people that think it's wise to engage in like some sort of human trafficking or drug trafficking, and that's the best way, they're wrong, right? Even if they use guns to force you to think it's true, you're still wrong. And we can discuss that, right? So then everything is possible. So the world we're forced to accept is false. Okay, so I can say that capitalism is not the best way. Even though we're forced to accept it, we can say there's some false data. So, okay, I can work with what these guys are saying here. Then nothing is true. Whoa. So what they mean by nothing is anything that's related to that world. So it can't be nothing, right? You see how I have to interpret this philosophically to make sense of it? Otherwise, it won't make sense.
The one thing that I'm not sure about is the like economic reading that you're getting from this, because we don't even know this. We don't know the speaker's ideological or economic
Once we
beliefs.
get down a few lines.
Okay.
Yeah. Then everything is possible. So again, nothing is true. Okay. That makes everything possible. Well, kind of. If you are nihilistically break everything down to nothingness, okay, sure, then you have room to build stuff. But if the foundation of, if structure in itself was false, then nothing can be built. So this is a hard one to make sense of because it's kind of contradictory. It would make more sense to say if nothing is true, then nothing is possible, right? But it's absurdist in some ways, the way that it's being presented. And it might be presented this way because look how much time I spent on one sentence, right? Like every 3 words, I'm like, wait, we got to put the brakes on here and make sense of this, right? And that's part of when I am interpreting this, I'm like, how could it be true? I take this statement and I look at the true statements and I'm like, which one does it match to, right? Like, how can I make sense of this? And then that would be my interpretive methodology. You know what I'm saying? Because I have to make sense of it for myself. I'm like, how do I even make sense of this? You know what I mean? And it's not fruitful to just dismiss stuff, right? You can have that dismissal in mind, but then still try to figure out a way to make it fit. It's like you're blind. You know when kids play with shapes and they try to fit the shape inside the thing? That's kind of what it's like. Like, does it even fit here? Does this statement fit anywhere? And then you can try to extract something. Sorry, go ahead. You want to say something? Yeah.
I feel like a lot of things in this world, we can explain it so differently because that, to me, for example, we'll compare it to a test. You know, in some tests, it's like, please choose the right answer. All could apply, or just 2, right? So sometimes A, B, and C, and D are the right answer, but they're all worded differently, but they all mean the same thing.
Mhm.
but sometimes it's just A. So I feel like this is one of those where it's all like it can all make sense, but if you get what I like, do you get what I mean?
It depends on how we define
That's
it.
how I looked at it. Like,
Sure.
in the beginning, yeah.
That's okay.
So it's interesting that you look at it like from what I got, you look at it like it's A or B or C or D, but I feel like it could be A, B, C.
Yeah.
You get what I mean?
Sometimes there might be multiple interpretations, like world, like what do
Yeah.
you mean by that? And what it's gonna, so in logic, when you take your logic class in university, I'm not sure when that day is, when they say it's gonna be a day, you're gonna do this truth table thing where you have a specific definition and then it will generate a list of what could possibly be true. And if you change the definition, it would have to be a different truth table, right? It's like when you're going down the river, there's multiple paths. And so you have to, you can't just say this is the only path. If there's multiple paths, you have to check out, you have to map them both out. Okay, so let's just go, so next sentence. So Iris, your turn.
Okay. On the way to discover what we love, we will find everything we hate, everything that blocks our path of what we desire.
Okay, so let's just, so this is a different character. So on the way to discovering what we love, okay, that's good, sure. We will find everything we hate. Maybe. I would say it's not necessarily the case.
No.
Because there are some things that you will hate, but you're not going to find them out in your path for love.
Oh,
So for example, like what will you see? Everything will hate. Everything.
I feel like you will, because I mean, it said discovering, so that means you're experiencing, right? To discover means to experience. So you would find it if you're discovering. No?
So the reason this is invalid is it's going from a particular statement. So discovering what we love. I love apples.
Yeah.
Love them.
But you wouldn't know which apple you loved if you didn't try. You know, Granny Smith. I don't know all the other ones. You know what I mean? Like you wouldn't know if you know what I mean. I know I like green apples. I don't like the red. I don't like all the other ones. Green all the way. But I knew that because I tried all the other apples. That's what I got.
Yeah. So the problem though is that when we have the statement everything we hate or that category, it's greater than only apples. So for example, I have a dog, her name's Sophia. When I first got Sophia, we would go for walks in the forest. And there was this one place we would go where there was a dead raccoon. It's been dead for a long time, like to the point where it was yellow and like decaying. And dogs, they like to roll around in dead stuff because it gives them the scent. And so predators are less, this is my theory, predators are less likely to want to eat them. I hated the smell of that decomposing animal. I hated it, right? It was disgusting. It was so gross. Like it was super gross, right? So I'm gonna say I hate that. Okay. But me going after things that I love, right? It doesn't mean that I would ever encounter that thing or other things of equivalence that I would also hate. Me tasting like if I love green apples too, I actually prefer Red Delicious, but if I'm having Red Delicious apples and I love Red Delicious apples,
Right.
it doesn't mean that I would encounter all the things that I hate.
No, but you tried different apples, though. So that's how you found out you like Red Delicious, yeah, right?
Do you hate the other one?
But you don't hate
No,
it, but
you
you
just-
know that you love those
what-
apples. You don't not hate, but you know that you love them. Just
So
like I know I
every-
like green. Sorry, go ahead.
Do you think everything is just too extreme a word for you? Because I think it does sound more
Yeah.
absolute than
Yeah.
words. But I think the idea though makes a lot of sense of in your pursuit to find one thing, you are going to find its contrary. You're going to find the exact, not the exact negation of it, but you're going to find things about yourself that you never expected to learn.
Right.
Okay, so we're gonna do, I'm gonna use the board today. So this is the Venn diagram example. So there's the things that we hate, and then there's the things that we love. Okay, so all of the things that I love go in here, or for whoever. So like Red Delicious apples are inside the circle categorically, right? In my pursuit of the things in here, it doesn't mean that I'm going to understand all of the things. So the statement says, pursuing the things that you love. It's not pursuing all of the things that you love. It's just, what does it say? What we love.
On the way to discover what we love. So you don't even know what you're looking for in the first place. Also, I think Venn diagrams overlap.
Yeah, I'm not overlapping them. I'm just doing a category first, right?
Okay.
because they don't overlap.
Love and hate don't overlap.
Yeah, it does.
No.
Yeah,
There
it
is always a
does.
middle. There's always a middle. In my opinion, I've never been in love, but I know there's always a middle. To me, that's
What
why I was
about
like,
grief? People
Right.
are so sad, but there's love and grief.
right? They're crying, but they're like, you know, I really had. a
Why
good
do people
time with
get
them.
with their exes? They love and hate them. Why do people get divorced and remarry?
Okay, we can talk about these.
Oh, that's a
Sure.
good example.
We can talk about these
Divorced and married.
So it's not we would have to differentiate between the person and like behaviors.
Mhm.
And it would be the behaviors that you hate. Like, for example, I recently suffered some violence,
Mhm.
right? I was like scratched in the face and almost
Oh my
lost my eye.
God.
I hate the fact that this person did that, but I do love certain things about them.
Mhm.
Okay, anyways, the point is here, categorically, all the things that are this thing, they go inside the circle. And so the reason that this is invalid is because it's making a generalization based off of one or a set of single properties. And this set of single properties, just the way that it's worded, everything we hate, everything you hate is the entire circle. It's everything in there. And there's no way for me to know all of the things in here based on some of the things in here.
But it starts with hate, though.
Well, this starts with love. It
Mhm.
says, on the way to discovering what we love, we will find everything we hate. So I'm going to say that that first statement is actually not true.
I feel like it's true.
Okay.
Because we know what we hate.
How would you phrase it to be true?
When we are discovering what we love, we may find things we hate.
Yeah,
It's
like
just
more.
too absolute.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but it
that's what
becomes false though, because it becomes invalid. It's the way that the categories are put together between things that like in the universe, there are many things that I hate. A lot of them I don't even know. That's why I give the example of Sophia with the raccoon thing. And I didn't know that I hated that like 5 years ago because I didn't have a dog. Right? I only knew about it when it happened. I was like, oh, this is just so brutal. It's like,
Wouldn't that be like the
Following what you
description of
love.
discovering? Like the way
Yes.
you're wording it sounds like discovering in the description of what discovering is, in my opinion.
you're right. You're correct.
Yeah.
The difference is when look at the second one, everything.
Yeah.
So everything means everything in the circle. It's the whole circle. And that's impossible.
But we're still discovering, so I feel like it's not concrete.
Yeah, and even that wouldn't make sense because like you
Because
so
the
it's
word discovering, like I feel like the way you're describing it is valid, yes,
Mhm.
but the fact that he put discovering just shows you that he's not saying it's a concrete thing.
Mm.
'Cause
Yeah,
it said
yeah.
discovering.
That's fine.
You know, discovering is
Yeah,
an
yeah.
open-ended thing to me. Because we're always going to be
Sure.
discovering.
You're
'Cause
correct.
you're not going to find, in my opinion, again, I've never been in love, but I'm not ever going to know what I love unless I know what I hate. Because I know that I love it, but I know I could say I hate that about this person. I can't stand it, but I learned to love this. But then again, I've never been in love, so I'm just talking from like my brain.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm just explaining the logic of that. We would just have to reword it, right? It's the difference between a particular statement and a universal generalized statement,
Yeah.
right? You have to just change the word everything.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we go to the next part. Everything that blocks our path of what we desire. Just because something blocks your path of a desire doesn't mean that you hate it. So, for example, someone in recovering from substance abuse, right, may not have any of that substance accessible to them. So the lack of accessibility is blocking what they desire, but they know that they don't want to do the drug or the alcohol, right? If you've ever met a recovering alcoholic, a huge portion of them do not want to be around alcohol. They're like, don't even have it near me. And that doesn't mean that they hate the fact that it's not there. They're actually like, no, I don't want it around me, right? So the way that this is being communicated in itself is unwise because it doesn't make sense and it's leading us down a negative path. So even David Burns with Natalia brings up feeling good. He would question a lot of what's going on here, right? And the overgeneralization distortion, for example. Okay, so next. Okay, so Jarrell, your next statement is there.
The comfort will never be comfortable for those who seek what is not on the market.
So this is, this is relating comfort with whatever's on the market. And it's not true that everything that is comfortable is marketable. Because, for example, I go to the lake and the lake is free.
But it's dirty.
That's fine.
But
I'm-
it's free though. But it's dirty.
Yeah, but I don't care about it being dirty. It's fine.
It's not about what you care about. It's about the fact that it's there. It's comfortable, but it's not marketable because it's dirty. Like I'm gonna go there and chill and have a good time with my people, but I'm not gonna shower my baby in the lake water. Like I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
How do you know it's dirty?
It's outside. I don't know. I guess because it's outside. I would never. I'm thinking
My
the
gosh.
lake.
Swim in the lake.
I don't know. No judgment to people who bathe in the lake, but if I'm thinking from the fact that I have a home, right? I'm not thinking of like desperate measures, like I don't have somewhere to, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's okay. So can you think of something that's comfortable that you don't have to pay for?
Air.
There you
I
go.
would just like to say
Right?
breathe the air.
Just being able to think of that example makes this statement false. All right, next statement. Iris, it's up to you.
Sorry, I was still thinking about that. A systemic questioning of the idea of happiness.
Okay, nothing wrong with that. So systematic questioning would just be some methodology of being philosophical on this term of what is happiness? What do we see that makes people happy, right? So we can talk, that's fine. So we get a check mark for that one. All right, next statement.
Will cut the vocal cords of every empowered speaker. Will yank the social symbols through the looking glass. Will devalue society's currency.
Okay, so remember what I said, that this is antisocial people speaking? Here is the very direct against society statement. First, let's just ask, is empowerment good or bad?
It depends on who has the power.
It's true.
What is empowerment?
It's a good
Control.
question.
I believe it's control.
Okay,
Yeah.
But what about people who call themselves empowered? Who's controlling them? If I say I'm empowered,
You could say whatever you want, but if you're not empowering other people or impacting other people, how powerful are you?
what if I'm saying I'm empowered? I'm not talking about other people. I'm only talking about myself. I'm empowered.
I get
Who's
it.
controlling me?
You guys, I feel like you're right. I feel like you're right. You're right.
Okay.
okay, so we're going to define empowerment based on the psychologist that made up the word or used it in its initial journal article. So I wrote a paper this summer on empowerment, and we're going to see what this person has to say.
What you have to say, or
No, what the person has to say.
Oh,
Yeah,
you're talking about yourself in third person.
yeah. Let's just see if I can find it quickly. Okay, so we'll just read from here. The concept of empowerment gained momentum in the community psychology when Julian Rapport discussed a paradox of conflict of people being understood in terms of rights or needs. Where do I find the definition here? Empowerment is a shift. We'll just read this. We'll just read this first now. The needs model is based on a preventative orientation, whereas the rights model is based on a citizenship advocacy orientation. The paradox occurs when needs or rights are not covered by social policies and justified as not relevant. Defines empowerment as the goal of enhancing one's ability to control their own lives. This is a solution to the paradox found in the rights or needs approach. Empowerment is a shift from dependency on social systems and professionals to embolden the autonomy of the individual who already has certain capacities within them for independence. So that's what empowerment is.
Autonomy. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Autonomy and with support from the policies of that government and the people that are giving you support.
Doesn't it say a shift from dependency would imply that you are not relying on those?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's where the autonomy and agency
Yes.
part comes in. Yeah.
So you don't need those systems.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's the systems that support for you to be on your own. They're like, we're going to give you
But
everything you
it's
need.
saying you're not dependent.
Yeah, yeah. So one thing would be like, we're going to give people $1,000 a month for the rest of their lives, and that's it. right? So that's you're dependent on the government for your money.
Yeah.
The other ones say, we're going to give you opportunity to go to school, allow you to have a business. If you need the money, you can have it, but we're going to give you all of these different avenues so you can make your own money.
But the independence thing, I think, has less to do with your outside support and more about your internal ability to provide for yourself.
But the empowerment is necessarily, so let's look at another one. 1987 report further elaborates on the concept of empowerment as having determination over one's own life and participation in community democratically. Empowerment is a psychological sense of control and mastery over one's affairs, social influence, and political power and rights.
Yeah.
The definition of empower as giving authority, authorizing, and enabling, permitting. The word empower, therefore, is not an isolated property of a person, but is situated within the larger socio-political context.
So, yeah. So that last part would be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's just go with that for now, just because that's what this guy said.
Mhm.
Okay, so we can discuss that specifically, but really we'll just take his definition for now.
Okay.
Right? And then if we go back over here and we say we're going to cut the vocal cords of every empowered speaker. Wait a minute here.
Which is like, because that part would be like empowered is someone who is independent, like autonomous. But then if you're speaking, maybe that's the part that they don't like. They want every single person to be in their own world and their own bubble and not communicating with other people. And also, why do they have the rights to shut down conversations? That's the part that's
So we're like, these guys in this specific scene, not good guys. As soon as you say something like the other stuff, we could just say you're a little confused. You took Nietzsche in the wrong way. But this is bad. And so we'll yank the social symbols through the looking glass. We'll devalue society's currency. So there is this symbolic interactionism, and that's something we could talk about as a way that society functions. Like we communicate through symbols, right? But also there's the looking glass self where we understand ourselves through looking at others, and we can have a upward or downward comparison. I look down at people, I'm better than them, or I look up at people and I praise them. You could be envious too, but that's bad. And then devalue society's currency. So that could be a criticism of capitalism, right? So we could say that you could interpret this with the last phrase, society's currency, as they mean empowerment as capitalistic empowerment, which is not true, but we'll just try to, how do we make sense of what this guy's saying? And so again, it could be a criticism towards that, but it's said in a very poor way, because it could be interpreted in a tyrannical, oppressive, removing your right to free speech and taking away like this integration of individual and a socio-political context, which is bad.
I think that's what he wants to do.
Yeah, not good.
I think that's what he's trying to say, is that like the fact that there's so many people speaking, like if we just cut off everyone, then maybe that'll be okay, because there's so many people with this mindset of freedom of speech. Yeah, it's free, but like not everyone should be comfortable enough to say things, because you can't impact people with just one word.
And this actually contradicts everything being possible, right? Because
It's true.
how are we supposed to have possibility if we can't communicate with each other about it?
Very good. All right, let's go to the next one.
To confront the familiar.
Yeah, and confronting the familiar can be a good thing, right? It like being comfortable, or the familiarity effect, or the Pygmalion effect, is that the more I am exposed to something, the more I like that thing. And advertising can use this to manipulate us, right? That's kind of a big function of it. And so confronting it would be to say, what is this? Is this good? But in the line of dialogue, confrontation is definitely like conflict in some ways. It's actually
Like
not.
violent.
Yeah, because they already said something that
Yeah.
was violent, right? Okay, next one, Drill, it's you.
Society is a fraud, so complete and venal.
I guess.
You know,
that it demands to be destroyed beyond the power of memory to recall its existence.
I gotta think about this.
I have to just
Okay.
define this term. Venal is showing or motivated by susceptibility to bribery. Okay, so being motivated by bribery is, we could say, is bad. Sure, that's not good.
Like
Beyond the power of memory means that, like, we can't really, we're not even confronting it. We're not even talking about it. We're just like destroying, right? So that it doesn't exist. It's not even part of history. It's not part of a memory. It's like a very revolutionary kind of idea.
Yeah, it's again antisocial because it's saying that we need to destroy society's existence. So that's clearly antisocial right there, and it has a specific perspective on society. So it's a criticism of society, but again, it's very extreme.
I
like-
think because society is extreme. I mean, just watch the news.
Hmm.
I don't watch the news because of how crazy, like, I watch it and I'm like, whoa, like some people are living like that. So I think society really is as serious as they portray it to be, but
Wow.
they kind of put like the blanket on it and say, you know, it's like here, like people say, oh, moving to Canada is like the greatest thing ever. But I walked down the street today and I've seen so many people on the street, like living on the street.
Yeah.
So I think society really is as serious as he's making it seem. Because there's people living on the street, like sleeping, and, you know, and that's, I've never, you know, I don't know. I never thought I would see that. So, yeah.
The point here that even though there's problems with society, which we can accept, it doesn't mean we want to destroy it to the point where people don't even remember it. That is like genocide or cultural genocide, like actual genocide, not just like a war happened and people died, but the systematic execution of an entire like ethnicity and all of their culture, everything, like burning books. Like how else would
Well,
you?
It's not even genocide. It would just be like killing all people. So I guess that
Yeah.
is genocide of a race, human
Sure.
race.
Yeah.
But it's like the issue earlier with what was the word, absolute, something
Mhm.
like that. It's just very, very extreme because even the people that you're talking about, like, they would be destroyed too if we were to totally restart.
Okay, next statement.
Is this me? Oh, okay. Where there is fire, we will carry gasoline.
So again, antisocial, right? They're just making problems worse, basically, right?
On fire.
These are not the firefighters.
Mhm.
There's the fire blazers.
I feel like that's connecting to the freedom of speech thing and cutting the cords, because you could say one word and start a whole war. I feel like that's how the war started to begin with. Someone said something so disrespectful and they're like, okay, let's do this. You know?
Yeah.
But I could be wrong because I wasn't there how many years ago, but you know what I mean? I feel like fire and gasoline is symbolic to words because he's talking about speaker and I don't know.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, next. Your turn,
Is it
Drill.
me?
Yep.
To interrupt the
Continuum.
continuum of everyday experience and all the normal expectations that go with it.
Yeah. So again, everyday experience, it like society is a current state. The human condition is greater than the current state of society. So to destroy the human condition or experience is not a good thing. Like that's too far.
We'd be doing a little more than just interrupting the continuum of
Yeah.
everyday experience.
For sure. And then the normal expectations that go with it. So expectations we can understand because that's people are expecting things from the society that they're in, you know? And these guys are just against that. Like basically I would say it's capitalism.
I feel like the flow of this is interesting because we went like more extreme and now we're getting like less. Like,
Yeah.
like it felt like it was building in like extremity, and then this is like, oh yeah, things are going to change. Like, yes, yes, we could gather that. Okay. To live as if something actually depended on one's action. So this is like more hopeful.
Well, see this,
It's like a little bit of a turn.
you weren't here a few weeks ago, but there's a vignette in the film where one of the individuals is talking about existentialism and the impact of our actions and how much it matters.
Mhm.
So they're actually making a reference to that previous discussion. Right.
Okay.
So he's there, like what you're reading it was the previous one. This one is saying as if something depended. So he's saying if what Sartre said was true, then we'd be fine. But he's disagreeing with what Sartre is saying without giving us an argument. Like, so that would be the conclusion or something like that. But is there any justification that that your actions don't matter? There's a premise missing from that argument.
Mm.
Right?
It's also hard to live if you're totally remaking
Yeah.
reality.
Okay, next. Drill two.
To rupture the spell of the ideology of the
Commodified.
commodified consumer society so that our repressed desires of a more authentic nature can come forward.
Okay, so rupture, that's like popping the bubble. Spell of the ideology of the commodified consumer society. So again, capitalism fundamentally is like consumerism is a smaller function because you could be there's the possibility of capitalism without an overemphasis on consuming. But because of the free market, we have the option to be consumers.
Mhm.
So, and then so there's that state, right? And he's saying we need to dispel that state so that we can allow our repressed desires come forward because they are more authentic. Now, again, just because something is natural doesn't mean it's good. So like lions will eat gazelles alive, or if you're hiking in the bush and a bear's like, I'm taking you down. Like there was this rating of like the most painful ways to die, and being mauled by a bear is like number one. So just because it's natural doesn't mean it's good, right?
Well, I don't know if they're saying it's good. Like desires, you were complaining about hedonism earlier,
Mhm.
right? Desires can be very negative. They can be
Yeah.
something that we use religion to repress, right?
Sure.
So I think it's like this anarcho-primitivism,
Mhm.
yeah, thing going on, and I don't think they're saying that's good. I think it's like when I was doing debate, it's like you just have to argue that it's better than the status quo.
Yeah.
And this perspective clearly sees a lot wrong with that society.
Yep. But it's just because our current state of society, like Hobbes wrote this story about called the Leviathan. And in the Leviathan, he states that the natural state of man is nasty, brutish, and short.
Mhm.
Right? And so there's that.
Really?
That's what he says, yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
There's that, and you can say that like that is what the without society we would be at.
Yeah.
You know, like Sam Harris, I was watching something with him recently, and he was talking about how there's like tribes of chimps, and if there's a chimp kind of wandering in their area, like the patrolling tribe will like rip them apart into pieces.
Mhm.
So you can't even go for a walk in the bush. You know what I mean? Because you might get, brutally killed. So again, a lot to question this. We can critique commodified consumer society, yes, and we can discuss how we're going to change it, but we're not just going to like have this extreme polarized view that if this isn't working, we're necessarily going to go back to the Hobbesian, right? Okay, next statement.
To demonstrate the contrast between what life presently is and what it could be.
That's perfect. Check mark. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, because it could be very different.
Yeah,
Like,
it's-
yes, it could be that way. Yes.
Okay, next.
To immerse
Yeah.
ourselves in the oblivion of actions and know we're making it happen.
Okay, oblivion is like not a good thing. So like, let's just look up the definition here of oblivion really quick. The state of being unaware or unconscious of what is happening. Okay, so I'm thinking of like this video game called Oblivion,
Mhm.
but being unaware, oblivious, is not really good.
I don't think it's bad though.
Well, it's the ignorance is bliss point.
But I think because of everything he's saying, it's just, I feel like he's using it as like a baby. Like, you know, when a baby is laying in a crib, like the baby is oblivious. But
Mhm.
that's a good thing because it's a baby. Like they're not thinking the parent's gonna pick them up and drop them by accident. The baby will just laying down and chilling, you know? So I think it depends on when you are in that state of being oblivious.
Yeah, and you said you'd be happier not reading the news, right?
Exactly. I'm
Not
oblivious
knowing-
to what's going on in the news. When I read it,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh. So,
Yeah.
you know, I think it depends.
Yeah, this is an absurdist statement because being unaware and knowing that you're doing something, you can know that it's willing ignorance then, right? If that's what they're saying. And that's a strategy you can take. Like if you have to be willingly ignorant so you don't burn down society, okay, fine. You know, maybe you just need to go and meditate and be a monk then, right? Because, you know, I don't know if this is necessarily the best. Okay.
Sure, if it logically holds up this premise either, because if we're immersing ourselves, we are willingly putting ourselves into this state. But then of oblivion of action, so actions is an active role, oblivion is passive.
Mhm.
So that's a contrast right there. And know that we're making it happen. If we're also conscious of it, how are we oblivious of our actions? And also to immerse ourselves is a collective statement when we've been very isolationist, individualistic before.
The
Know
state-
that we're making it happen. Together we are producing something.
This statement is contradictory for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, next one.
I think.
Really?
Or
Okay,
is it?
okay.
I don't know.
There will be an
Intensity?
intensity never before known in everyday life to exchange love and hate, life and death, terror and redemption, repulsions and attractions.
Yeah, so it's just a bunch of polarized like terms, right? And so it just goes back to that absurdist kind of orientation. And it's just basically saying there will be lots of chaos in the future, you know?
No
And
way. You see it that way?
well, yeah, like,
No.
okay, what do you see?
I see it as if like ultimately him cutting the vocal cords of these speakers. I think he's saying without all these opinions in life, we would be oblivious to do what's naturally good. Like babies. A baby will run up to you. I'll go back to a baby. A
Mhm.
baby is oblivious to fear and they'll run in the street. Sometimes you see people running after their kid in the street. They don't know that a truck is coming because they're oblivious and you know they don't know the contrast between love and hate, but they'll smile at you even if you're a serial killer from like 10 years ago, murdered like 10 billion people.
Mhm.
That's how I viewed it anyways, because like if we got back to that state, like to be childlike, I'm not religious at all, but I know that the one thing that they keep on telling us is to be childlike, because when you're like a kid, you're happy for the most part, and you're not thinking in a non-pure, I don't know if that's a word, but you're thinking in a pure state all the time. So you're not going to think to do that.
Okay, like innocent or naive,
Right.
maybe.
But
Yeah.
that's just how I view that
That's
statement
fine.
anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, to me, it seems like the speakers are almost just curious about human nature, and they almost just want a social experiment to remake us away from all of these coercive forces acting on us, all these agents of consumer society, and then they're going to say that this reality essentially is not. They think it's better, right? We have reasons to be suspicious of that idea. But even they see that it's going to be a brave new world full of like all of these very intense human experiences. It's not quite clear why, I guess, yeah, why would we want to go there exactly? They haven't made a super strong case for that part, but they're gonna say maybe like it's an intensity, so we're no longer being like barred from showing these intense experiences. Like, yes, you probably cannot like life and death kill someone in the street. That's not what our moral system allows people to do. And this state would, you know,
That's why I said it's
be
chaos.
uncontrolled. It would be
Yeah,
chaos,
that's
yes.
why-
And then order would probably form eventually. So this state is not going to last likely. We
The-
came from nothing, humans.
Mhm, sure. Yeah, yeah.
So
Okay, so next statement.
Oh yeah, an affirmation of freedom. Yes. So these guys are libertarians a little bit,
Okay.
but like to the extreme. Okay. An affirmation of freedom, so reckless and unqualified, that's very attractive argument. That it amounts to a total denial of every kind of restraint and limitation.
Yeah, it's just anarchistic. It's like an anarchistic perspective on and what the implications of that would be, you know. So I'm like, you're not driving the car.
Yeah.
Sorry, buddy. Like you need to be chained in the back. Actually, like I don't know, you know, cut my throat while I'm driving.
Oh my God.
Right. So these guys. So it's important to look at what they said. Now let's see. Like this is everything they said. Right. And this as an argument, we're going to criticize it based on what's here. And we can say for determining the meaning of some terms, we can try to plug in what makes the most sense. Right. And I believe it's clearly a criticism of our capitalistic society. And they're saying that the state of nature is better, like the Hobbesian approach for the powerful. And that didn't work out very well. In certain areas of the world, it's not working out well at all for that either. So what happens is these guys.
Well, I don't know if this state would give anyone power initially. Like if we were totally recreated, the empowered people, their vocal cords are out of here. Our society is remade, then people will get power based on ability, and people will get power based on these like, you know, shifty like natural selection ideas.
It's book one of Plato's Republic is that justice is not with those who are powerful. Just because you're strong, you have might, doesn't mean that what you're doing is right.
Yeah.
Or that what you think is correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so we did an evaluation of argument. So that's that. So these guys are walking through a parking lot, and then they see this image here, this old man who's up on top of a telephone pole. And so I'll just summarize this quickly. Like they ask, "How are you doing? Why are you up there?" He's like, "I'm not sure." It's like, "Do you need any help?" He's like, "No." Call him a stupid bastard. And then one of them says, "He's no worse than us. He's all action, no theory. We're all theory and no action." Well, yeah, sure. You know, like that's like a joke. You know what I mean? And then they continue walking and they see who looks like maybe a professor or something like that. They call him Mr. DeBoer. And this man says, "What was missing was felt irretrievable. The extreme uncertainties of subsisting without working made excesses necessary and breaks definitive." To quote Stevenson, I'm not sure which Stevenson, "Suicide carried off many, drink and the devil took the rest." So again, a very negative view, but in some ways, what he's saying is he's trying to explain why capitalism, consumerist society got to its point by saying that this uncertainty of where we're going, maybe, or the extremeness of our consumer society, left this situation of excess, and then the excess became almost a necessary function of capitalism. You know. All right, we're going to the next one. So this is chapter 13. This is not as long. So the main character shifts to a new vignette, and he's walking beside this railroad, and there's this. Oh, we gotta just switch this. Do you mind plugging this in?
Yeah. Where's the
Right in frame. And we're back. And so this dude jumps out, and he has a free radio T-shirt. And then they say, "Hey," and he's like, "You're a dreamer?" He's like, "Yeah." And so if somebody wants to read that paragraph, they can.
I haven't seen too many around lately. Things have been tough lately for dreamers. They say dreaming's dead. That no one does it anymore. It's not dead. It's just it just been forgotten, removed from our language. No one teaches it, so no one knows it exists.
Mhm.
The dreamer is banished to obscurity. Well, I'm trying to change all that, and I hope you are too. By dreaming every day, dreaming with our hands and dreaming with our minds. Our planet is facing the greatest problems it's ever faced, ever. So whatever you do, don't be bored. This is absolutely the best, most exciting thing we could have possibly hoped to be alive. and things are just starting.
So this is in reference back to the main theme of the film, which is lucid dreaming. And in the previous vignette where there's three guys explaining lucid dreaming in the room together. And and as contrast to the previous vignette with the antisocial people, this guy is not antisocial, but you could see he's at a train track. I don't know if you've seen people like this, you know, like they're separating from society, but they're not against society, right? Like he's not in a business suit coming out of a corporate building. He's just like a renegade, like Bob Dylan, just riding the train across the country, which is fine, you know? And so he has a value in looking at things optimistically. And that's what he means by dreaming, fundamentally, you know? And he's not like naive. He's saying our planet is facing its greatest problems ever faced. And then he provides his solution. Just, you know, don't give up, basically. You know, keep on dreaming. So
Dreaming is like an act of exploring something that doesn't exist, exploring possibility. Like even physical dreaming is like you're sleeping, you're in a world that you cannot be in your waking life. You're not fully in control of yourself, or your unconscious is partially in control of you. So like if that's your perspective, that's your medium, that's your thing, then like I think it is a great source of hope that you can go places that you cannot physically, that you can always see things that do not exist. You can find solutions that you can't during the day. Like my grandpa, he taught dreaming, and he's also a poet now.
Nice.
Which is really cool. And he asks himself questions before he sleeps, and then he gets answers for his poem when he wakes up.
Nice. That's awesome.
So yeah.
Good. Then the character is in a parking lot, I think, and then there's this other character in the dream. Aris, do you want to read this one?
Sure. Yeah. 1,000 years is but an instant. There's nothing new, nothing different. The same pattern over and over. The same clouds, the same music, the same insight I felt an eternity ago. Oh, I felt an hour or an eternity ago. There's nothing here for me now, nothing at all. Now I remember. This happened to me before. This is why I left. You have begun to find your answers. Although it may seem difficult, the rewards will be great. Exercise your human mind as fully as possible, knowing it is only an exercise. Build beautiful artifacts, solve problems, explore the secrets of the physical universe, savor the input from all the senses, feel the joy and sorrow, the laughter, the empathy, compassion, and tote the emotional memory in your travel bag. I remember where I came from and how I became human, why I hung around, and now my final departure is scheduled. This way out, escaping velocity. Nothing, just eternity. But infinity.
Very good.
So
So-
beautiful.
This is like a perspective on living and life that is, again, more optimistic, almost a little autistic when you see the character like he has Asperger's or something, but that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, you know? It's, you know, and I think that it's an existential self-report about what it was like to live, you know? And then the person's like, now I'm done. Like, what does he say? I remember where I was going. I remember how I was being, so he's looking back, right? And part of the, like this character would actually be dead. Part of this is that the people that he's communicating with are dead people. They're in the land of the dead, basically. And that's revealed at the end of the film. And so, yeah, it's just an appreciation, I think, of experience and being human.
These moments.
Yeah. It may seem difficult. The rewards will be great. Exercise your human mind as fully as possible, knowing it is only an exercise. So it's an intrinsic thing, right? You're doing it for the sake of doing it, and then do these other things while you're alive. So it's good. You know, I don't.
Love for human.
Yeah.
Why do you say it's autistic though?
When you see the character, the way that the character is
Oh.
communicating, I sense a sense of like you might be on the spectrum. It
What if he is though?
doesn't matter.
We brought it up.
Yeah. Just because you can kind of see it, like when you see how the character is communicating, it gives a sense of, you know, this person's perspective it may be different than others, and we can explain it because of their psychological orientation, but it doesn't mean it has less value. It's just that they came to it because of the orientation that, or sorry, the structure that they're given, you know, and there's still value within that. And that can go back to the point about well-being and being mentally healthy, is that we might have different brains and the workings of our mind may be a little different, but you can still have well-being, right? Within the context of having autism or whatever else, you know, like propensity towards depression, maybe.
And they're in a parking lot in this scene, right?
In this scene, yeah.
Interesting.
And so this next chapter, he keeps on walking. She stops him and she starts talking to him. So, Jarell, I think it's your turn.
Excuse me.
Excuse me.
Hey, do we do that again? I know we haven't met, but I want to be an ant, you know?
I don't want to be an ant.
Oh, sorry, but I don't want to be an ant, you know? I mean, it's like we go through life with our antennas bouncing off one another continuously on an autopilot with nothing really human required of us. Stop, go, walk here, drive there. All action basically for survival. All communication simply to keep this ant colony buzzing along in an efficient, polite manner. Here's your change, paper or plastic, credit or debit. You want ketchup with that? I don't want a straw. I want real human moments. I want to see you. I want you to see me. I want to give that. I don't want. Why am I ignoring?
You gotta just get closer.
Maybe. I don't want to give that up. I don't want to be an ant, you know?
So just quick comment. So just commenting on like the automated element of our life that we're not really being present again. We're just like on this routine and we don't really appreciate what's going on in the moment. And meeting her in this moment was that important thing, right?
I feel like it's also a cool conversation in the context of the other chapters preceding this, because the one right before was a great appreciation for being human, the human perspective. And then this one is, it's not even really about the person themselves. They're seeing the collective and they're feeling disillusioned and they're feeling that these humans are actually not even humans, that we're just little people interacting. And then before that, it was, you know, looking at the exact same system and seeing like this, feeling this violent urge to like remake everything and go back. And then this, you could also read through the lens of like capitalism, like this, the system has polite society, contemporary norms has set us up in a certain way to interact with each other in a very limited capacity. Like we're not able to have true conversation. So I don't know. I think that's really cool.
Great. Did you want to read the next paragraph?
Sure. No. I don't want to be an ant either. Yeah, thanks for kind of jostling me there. I've been kind of on zombie autopilot lately. I don't feel like an ant in my head, but I guess I probably look like one. It's kind of like D.H. Lawrence had that idea of two people meeting on a road. And instead of just passing and glancing away, they decide to accept what he calls a confrontation between their souls. It's like freeing the brave, reckless gods within us all.
Yeah, super cool. I like this point about D.H. Lawrence. This is like the first real like philosophical input that the main character has in the film. He says he makes like a phone call and does a couple other things in previous scenes, but this is his first one. And so this confrontation between the souls, that is like almost an acceptance that you are an object and the other person sees you, right? And not only sees you, but you're looking at each other. And so there's the gaze, G-A-Z-E, right? We're gazing each other, right?
Yeah.
From a distance. And there actually is a lot of nonverbal communication that's going on there. And especially with like in the context of even attraction too, right? When you're seeing people, and women, I would argue, are very sensitive to this, right? When they're evaluating men and they're like, if you make me uncomfortable from this far, I'm not getting any fucking closer to you, right? And so, yeah. And so I think that's an important thing to first confront your own soul, your own mind, And that will allow you to be able to be open to the souls or minds of others,
Mhm.
you know?
And also the idea earlier of God's in other places, God's in cinema, God's within all of us.
Hmm.
But then this is saying multiple gods in all of us, and also that they are reckless. So
Sure.
it's a different view on control, I guess.
Yeah, to free it, right? And
Yes.
there's no assumption that it's a bad thing, like some of the previous.
Well,
characters.
reckless, just like you don't really know what's going to happen. I think reckless could go either way. Reckless
Yeah.
has the capacity for violence, for chaos, also for great good.
Yeah,
It needs to be freed.
yeah, the reckless one, I wouldn't. I think like I wouldn't go as far as like the violence because there's no malicious intent in this specific character, like the other ones.
Well, reckless isn't wise, and reckless isn't in
Yes.
control of yourself.
Yes.
I think reckless is a condition where of great unpredictability, where a lot of things
Yeah.
can happen.
That's fine, but recklessness doesn't have the intentional maliciousness, whereas the antisocial group were intentionally malicious. If you fell down and you knocked into somebody and they fell, that like harm may have been caused, but it wasn't like cutting the vocal cords of
Yeah,
empowerment.
yeah.
Like that's not good.
But can you be intentional if there's, another agent inside of you, a reckless God? Like, is this person intentional or are you intentional? It's like the mind and the brain argument, kind of.
Yeah, well, brave, reckless, it's like that. There's the part of you that wants to get out,
Yeah.
and the antness of this habitual routine prevents you from, we could just say, expressing yourself, expressing who you are and what you are with other people. Okay, let's continue. So then they shake hands, and then I'm just gonna kind of like skip this part a little bit. So the character, she talks about how she's doing this play, and she wants the actors to embody themselves within the character and engage with the audience. And then so she describes that to him, so you can watch the film or read it yourself, you guys, online here. And then he responds, and then she's like, "Do you want to be part of it?" And then he responds, "Yeah, I think it's cool, but what is it?" And he asks her, "What is it like to be a character in a dream?" And this is his first real sense of lucidity in the film, right? And he says, "I'm not awake right now. I haven't worn a watch since fourth grade, and it's the same watch from fourth grade." And he's like, in his 20s. And he's like, "I don't even know if you can answer that question. I'm just trying to get a sense of where I am, what's going on." And so she responds by saying, "Well, what about you? What's your name? What's your address? What are you doing?" And then he laughs. He's like, "Well, I can't remember right now. I can't recall that information." And that's besides the point, right? So he's like, he asked her a question that's unanswerable, and then she asked him questions that are unanswerable. So it was almost like a standoff. There's like a stalemate in this "do we exist" kind of questioning. So he says, "Can't remember what's going on, can't recall. It's not the point where I can dredge up this information about his address or his mother's maiden name." And then he says, "I've got the benefit in this reality of a consistent perspective." Now, what does consistent perspective mean, right? It's because in dreams, things do change, but I guess we could say that I'm always perceiving this change in inconsistency, because dreams can be kind of inconsistent.
They are.
They're a little all over the place sometimes, right? And then she asks, "What is your consistent perspective?" So you could read this paragraph here if you want, Drill, the top.
It's mostly just me dealing with a lot of people who are exposing me to information and ideas that seem vaguely
Yeah.
similar,
Familiar?
but familiar. But at the same time, it's all very alien
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah.
I'm not in an objective, rational world. Like, I've been flying around. I don't know. It's weird too because it's not like a fixed state. It's more like this whole spectrum of awareness. Like the lucidity waivers. Like right now, I don't know that I'm dreaming. Right?
I know that I'm dreaming.
See, now I'm saying don't. What's
Okay.
going on with me?
And you're talking about yourself. You're like, "I'm not
Oh,
dreaming."
I think it's just I'm taking it personal.
Yeah.
I know that I'm dreaming, right? We're like even talking about it. this is the most in myself and in my thoughts that I've been so far. I'm talking about being in a dream, but I'm beginning to think that something that I don't really have any
Precedent.
precedent
Yeah.
for. It's totally unique. Like what I say, like the quality of the environment and the information that I'm receiving, like your soap opera, for example. That's a really cool idea. I didn't give up
I
with
think
that.
I didn't come up with that.
I didn't come up with that. It's like something outside of myself, like something transmitted to me externally. I don't know what it is.
And then she says to him, we seem to think we're so limited by the world and the confines, but we're really just creating them. You keep trying to figure it out, but it seems like now that you only, you know what you're doing is dreaming. You can do that. You can do whatever you want to. You're dreaming, but you're awake. You have so many options, and that's what life's about. So there, again, this concept of lucidity and lucid dreaming, and then connecting that to just being awake, being lucid while you're not sleeping. And in the Peaceful Warrior, what is Socrates say to Dan? Socrates says, death isn't bad. The bad thing is most people aren't even alive, or they're not even awake, right? They're not living. They're just like going through those motions of being the ant again.
They're
And-
alive, but they're not living.
Yeah. And so it's like, that's part of what I would say enlightenment is. And maybe the woke culture is trying to do that, but I don't think they're doing it correctly because it's unphilosophical. Enlightenment is an awareness of yourself as a human within the context of humanity. And that's why learning philosophy is valuable. That's why they say that enlightenment and philosophy are kind of tied. Buddhism has this nirvana perspective that enlightenment is the not being attached and alleviating yourself from suffering. But really, it's, I would say, about this lucidity factor, that you are conscious now and you can choose to become whatever you want, right? Within certain limits. And this is why when I watched this 20 years ago, that I chose to be sitting here. I made decisions that would make it impossible for me to give up. Like having $100,000 student debt. I can't turn away from it. That way, I force myself to be successful. Because once I'm in there and it's difficult and I'm suffering, I know that I won't give up. But if I have an alternative option, like someone offers me a job for $100,000 a year, that, like most people,
You take it.
I might take it.
If you like it though. So don't, I feel like it depends on if you actually enjoy the job, because you could say, yeah, I'm going to take the job for 100K, but you're selling your soul if you don't
Exactly.
like it.
Okay, well, yeah.
You know, it's like marriage. If you, a lot of people marry that person, but ultimately you could be married for, I don't know, a green card. You're selling your soul. You could be married for money. Yeah, I'm going to give you money every month, but you don't actually love the person.
Very good. Okay, so next point, Darrell, you want to read that one?
Well, I understand what you're saying. It's up to me. I'm the dreamer. It's weird, like so much of the information that these people have been like
Imparting.
imparting to me. I don't know. It's got this like really heavy connotation.
Yeah, connotation. And so he's referencing back to like what is brought up at the end of the film, that they're actually dead. And it's the most, it's lucid dreaming, or dreaming is the closest thing that what the afterlife is. And this is what they're saying the afterlife is. Well, how do you feel?
Well, sometimes I feel kind of isolated, but most of the time I feel really connected, really like engaged in this action, in this active process, which is kind of weird because most of the time I've just been really passive and not really responding, except for now, I guess. I'm just kind of letting the information wash over me.
And then she says, it's not necessarily passive to not respond verbally. We're communicating on so many levels simultaneously. Perhaps you're perceiving directly.
Most of the people that I've been encountering. And most of the things that I would want to say, it's like they kind of say it to me, and almost like
Say it
at
for
my-
me.
and huh?
They almost say it for me.
And almost wait, did I miss something?
Oh, maybe I confused. Sorry, continue.
Sure. It's like they kind of say it for me, and almost like at my cue. It's like complete unto itself. It's not like I'm having a bad dream. It's a great dream, but it's so unlike any other dream I've ever had before. It's like the dream. It's like it's like the dream.
It's like the dream.
It's like the dream.
Yeah.
It's like I'm being prepared for something.
Yeah. So this is like the foreshadowing or ominous, like, what's really going on in this movie here, kind of thing. And that kind of creates this curiosity so that when the other scene comes up, it's there. Okay. So now we're getting to the end of the film, and the character's on a subway, and he moves towards a bridge, and there's this guy named Timothy Speed Levitch. He's pretty intense, this dude. So I'll read this one. On the bridge, Lorca warns, life is not a dream. So again, this contrasting perspective. Beware and beware and beware. And so many think because then happened, now isn't. So that's being stuck in the past, right? Not being present again. But did I mention the ongoing wow is happening right now? That goes back to the holy moment, being in awe or the presentness. We are all co-authors of this dancing exuberance, where even our inabilities are having a roast. We are authors of ourselves, co-authoring a gigantic Dostoevsky novel starring clowns. This entire thing we're involved with called the world. So again, there's a definition of the world. And the director or the screen, assuming they have some control over what's being written here, can connect these together. So that is also a response to the antisocials, is an opportunity to exhibit how exciting alienation can be. So that's connecting to the clown thing, that we're involved in this life, and it can be alienating, but it doesn't have to necessarily be a bad thing. And that can also be a satire too. He's just making fun of it. Life is a matter of a miracle that is collected over time by moments, flabbergasted to be in each other's presence. The world is an exam to see if we can rise into direct experience. Again, what does direct experience mean? Maybe it just means that you're not lost in your mind, you're just being present. Our eyesight is here as a test to see if we can see beyond it. Matter is here as a test for our curiosity. Doubt is here as an exam for our vitality. Thomas Mann wrote that he would rather participate in life than write 100 stories. Giacometti was once run down by a car, and we recalled falling into a lucid faint, a sudden exhilaration as he realized at last something was happening to him. So again, this is in contrast to the ant-like lifestyle. An assumption develops that you cannot understand life and live life simultaneously. I do not agree entirely, which is to say, I do not exactly disagree. I would say that life understood is life lived, but the paradoxes bug me, and I can learn to love and make love to the paradoxes that bug me. And on really romantic evenings of self, I can go salsa dancing with my confusion. Before you drift off, don't forget, which is to say remember, because remembering is so much more a psychotic activity than forgetting. Lorca, in that same poem, said, the iguana will bite those who do not dream. And as one realizes one is a dream figure in another person's dream, that is self-awareness. So there's some good points here. I like that, this analogy of self-awareness when realizing what your meaning is to other people, right? And that can help you direct your behavior and who kind of person you are. And the other real important point here is the assumption develops that you cannot understand life and live life simultaneously. Life understood is life lived. That's very good. And there is this, notion that, especially as someone who studied philosophy for a long time, you can't know things before they happen almost, or know something about that which is currently going on because you're in the thing. And we talked about this a bit last week too. Or maybe even in the audio file I posted to the group. And so part of the good life, or part of being wise, is to understand life. That's what wisdom is. That way you can live the best life as you're going. You don't want to be, an old person about to die and be like, oh, now I figured it out. That sucks. And from a, I guess, like a cultural perspective, that's what gives us the ability to appreciate wisdom at a young age. That way you can live the fullest life possible. All right, next chapter. Bam, chapter 16. Meet yourself. Okay, so this seems like it's a little long. I'm just going to see if I can go through this. So the main character is walking through the street with the red fog, and then someone in the parking lot says, you haven't met yourself yet, but the advantage, or on the street, to meeting others in the meantime is that one of them may present you to yourself. Examine the nature of everything you observe. So again, this is a self-awareness. You haven't met yourself yet, right? Meeting others is one of them may present you to yourself. So it's through these relationships that we understand ourselves better, right? And it doesn't mean that it was a positive thing. It could be a conflict. And that conflict, if you feel something from that, there's something to be learned there. If you don't feel anything, it's hard to learn stuff in that same way.
Isn't a bad thing.
Yeah.
I feel like it goes back to love, like love and hate.
Mhm.
Like do that. You realize that, hey, I don't like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very good. Examine the nature of everything you observe. Very important, right? To question what is. For instance, you might find yourself walking through a dream parking lot. And yes, those are dream feet inside of your dream shoes, part of your dream self. The person that you appear to be in the dream cannot be who you really are. This is an image, a mental model. And in the Matrix, they have a similar thing where there's like a reconstructed self, the one in the Matrix. And so the main character sees a girl from the beginning and they reminisce. She's like, did you see me? No. And then they kind of like make out a little bit. And then it switches to a new one. And now he's watching TV again. And so some of it's garbage, but is like filler to make it look like it's a TV. But then he says, in hell, you sink to the level of your lack of love. In heaven, you rise to your level of fulfillment of love. And then there's a little diagram of that. And so again, it depends on what people mean by love. Like, again, I recently experienced some violence, and that person would say when they're being violent, oh, but you like it. And I said, well, why do you think that I like it when you hit me? Because I like it. Well, just because it's making you feel good doesn't mean it's making me feel good, right? And so there is the possibility that, and Sartre said the only hell is other people. Hell exists here, and you can live an unpleasant, bad life. Again, depending on how we define hell, but the closest thing we can get to is what we have here. So being loving, i.e. being pro-social, is important, which is acknowledging the feelings of others, but also being realistic and not enabling their mental illness or their delusion. And so, yeah, now we switch, and this guy is almost doing a commentary about the film. And he says that this guy spent $2.5 million making a film. He said, what's the film about? He said, well, it's a dream within a dream. And the guy said, well, he lost all that money. So he's just making a comment about the film. Maybe someone said something similar to him. And then there's the gobbledygook comment. That's a politician talking. So basically they just talk garbage. And then there's someone commenting on dreaming again. And so this person on the TV says, down through the centuries, the notion that life is wrapped in a dream has been a pervasive theme of philosophers and poets. So doesn't it make sense that death too would be wrapped in a dream? Well, maybe. What do you mean by death? That after death, your conscious life would continue. It might be called the dream body. And it would be the same dream body you experience in your everyday dream life, except that in this post-mortal state, you could never wake up again, never return to your physical body. Maybe. And that's basically the main thesis of the whole film. This whole film is to get you to think about that as the afterlife. And it could be true. There are some, like, again, it's a little hard when we look at specific ways people die, and because they give the evidence earlier in the film that there's 6 to 12 minutes or 8 to 12 minutes of brain activity, and that could be an eternity from the experience of a dreaming perspective. Okay, so then he goes into the convenience store, a dude's walking out. As this guy's walking out, he says, as the pattern gets more and more intricate and subtle, being swept along is no longer enough. So this is going back to this ant-like commentary of our lives, that you just can't be an ant if your life becomes more complicated, or you observe things about life that are more complicated, right? As from intricate point, and then from the subtlety point, it's that you have to pay more attention. You can't just be mindless. And then he goes into the convenience store, and the same character who's the clerk was the guy who was driving the boat car. And he says, what's the word, turd? And then the character's like, didn't you drive a boat car? And the guy's like, what are you talking about? And then he's like, no, man, don't have a boat car. Don't know what you're talking about. This must be a parallel universe night. You know that guy that just came in here who ran out the door? He comes up to the counter. You know what he says? I said, what's the word, turd? He puts a burrito down. He says, I have but recently returned from the valley of the shadow of death. I am rapturously breathing in all the odors and essences of life. I have been to the brink of total oblivion. I remember and ferment a desire to remember everything. So it's almost like he's talking about a guy that's been back from the dead. That's what he's saying. Because there's this ongoing theme of this is the afterlife, basically. It's this lucid dream kind of thing. And then the main character's like, well, what'd you say to that? And he's like, if you're going to microwave your burrito, I want you to poke holes in the plastic wrapping so it doesn't blow up. And so it's like a funny thing. And so the main character is now shifts to another scene. He's in a restaurant with another lady, and she is also commenting on being alive. She says, when it was all over, and all I could think about was how the entire notion of oneself, what we are, is just this logical structure, a place to momentarily house all these abstractions. So you're a mind, right, with beliefs. It is a time to become conscious, to give form and coherence to the mystery. And I had been a part of that. So it's being an embodied human being. It was a gift. Life was raging all around me, and every moment was magical. I loved all the people dealing with the contradictory impulses. That's what I love the most, connecting with the people. That's all that mattered. And so just this point that the most important thing in life is our relationships. And fundamentally, there's evidence that shows that the more closely tied your relationships are, you live a longer life, right? There's this, I don't know if it's Florence, but there's this place in Italy where people are very, very connected together. And they have the longest longevity. They live the longest, independent of things like smoking cigarettes, being obese, or other things that usually kill us. Okay, so where are we here? Next chapter. So yeah, so someone gives a picture of himself. So that's the sense of self-awareness. Going back to that previous thing, that in your relationships with others, you can become more aware of yourself. I think I can finish it today, because we're almost at the end, so I'm just going to the end. Okay, so chapter 17, performance. The main character is walking. A man passes him, and he says, Kierkegaard's last words were, sweep me up. And I don't know how much I'm going to read into that, sweep me up. In some ways, you could say the same thing as like, and now I'm done. You know, this is the end. And then it goes to the dancing scene. Okay, next chapter. There's only 2 more left. So Trapped in Dreams. This one's a bit long, so yeah. I'm just going to read this really quick. Okay, so the guy's playing pinball machine. Who is Richard Linklater, the director of the film? He says, hey, man, hey, weren't you in a boat car? You know, the guy with the hat driving a boat car? And then Linklater says, I'm not saying you don't know what you're talking about, but I don't know what you're talking about. So again, this theme that characters in the dream can be in different scenes and they're not necessarily the same person or connected, even though we're having the dream. But in this context, it's the boat scene, or sorry, this is the land of the dead, right? No, you see, you guys left me at this place and I was still dreaming, and I dreamt that I woke up. And then the Linklater says, oh yeah, those are false awakenings. I used to have those all the time, because he's not alive anymore. He's dead. Yeah, but I'm still in it now. So now the main character is like anxious. I can't get out of it. He's like upset. It's going on forever. I keep waking up. I just wake up into another dream. It's creeping me out. I'm talking to dead people, women on TV telling me how death is this dream time that exists outside of life. That's one of the major theses of the film. I'm starting to think that I'm dead. And then at this point, the pinball machine goes, beep. That's actually what's going on. And then Linklater says, I'm going to tell you about a dream I once had. He's like, I know that when someone says that, you're in for a long, boring few minutes, but it sounds like you don't have anything else to do. So he read this essay by Philip K. Dick. And it was about a book, Flow My Tears, the Policeman Said. He won an award for it. Right. So he wrote it really fast, followed right out of him, probably because he was doing PCP or something like that, or speed. It felt he was sort of channeling it or something. Anyway, about 4 years after it was published, he was at this party, met this woman who had the same name as the woman in the book. She had a boyfriend with the same name as the boyfriend character, et cetera, et cetera. There's all these similarities, and it was freaking him out. Then shortly after, he went to mail a letter. He saw this guy standing by his car. He looked shady. Instead of avoiding him, which you usually would do, he walked up to him and said, "Can I help you?" The guy said, "Yeah, I ran out of gas." Gives him some cash to help him with the gas. And then he gets home. He's like, "Wait a minute, how's the guy going to get gas if he doesn't have a car? He can't drive anywhere." So he drives back, takes him to the gas station. As he's pulling up, he says, "Hey, this is in my book too, this exact station, the guy, everything." So this whole episode, this kind of is creepy. He's telling his priest about it, describing how he wrote this book, and then years later, all these things happened. And then the priest says, "That's the book of Acts. You're describing the book of Acts." He's like, "I never read that." So he goes home and reads it, and it's uncanny. Even the characters' names are the same as the Bible. The book of Acts takes place in 50 AD when it was written. Philip K. Dick had this theory that time was an illusion, that we're actually all in 50 AD. And the reason he had written the book was that he had somehow momentarily punctured through this illusion, this veil of time. And he was able to see what was going on in the book of Acts. He was really into Gnosticism, this idea that this demiurge or demon has created this illusion of time to make us forget that Christ was about to return and the kingdom of God was about to arrive. And we're all in 50 AD, and there's someone trying to make us forget that God is imminent, and that what time is and what all of history is just this kind of continuous, daydream or distraction. And in some ways, that's what this whole afterlife thing is, the land of the dead, which is equivalent to like purgatory in a Christian context, because at the end of the film, he goes back to the car and he tries to grab the car. But then he doesn't. And he keeps on saying, like, it's like, maybe he says it here, but it's like we keep on saying no, 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 but eventually we all have to come to the yes, where we give up and give in. And so I read on, and that was weird. That night I had a dream. This guy in the dream was supposed to be a psychic. I was skeptical. I was like, he's not really a psychic. I'm thinking to myself, then he started to float. He was levitating. He's like, "Okay, I believe you're a psychic. Put me down." So he floats down, and the guy or the psychic is a woman. Her name is Lady Gregory. Now, Lady Gregory was Yates's patron. I have no idea who that is. Some Irish person. I've never seen her image. I was sure that it was her though. And then and so she says to him, "Let me explain to you the nature of the universe. Philip K. Dick was right about time, but he's wrong that it's 50 AD. Actually, there is only one instant. And it's right now, and it's eternity. And it's an instant which God is posing a question." This is what it is. That question is basically, do you want to, be with one with eternity? Do you want to be in heaven? And we're all saying, no, thank you, not just yet. And so time is actually just this constant saying no to God's invitation. I mean, that's what time is. I mean, it's no more 50 AD than it's 2001. And there's just this one instant, and that's what we're always in, which is the present moment. And that's one perspective of what time is. In the Stanford Encyclopedia section on the philosophy of time, you can read about the different perspectives on time, and this is one of them. So we continue walking. My dog runs over to me. He's petting him, happy to see him, but he's been dead for many years. So I'm petting him, realizes this gross oozy stuff coming out of his stomach, looks at Lady Gregory, and she's coughing up like dead person vomit. It's disgusting. And he realizes he's actually in the land of the dead. Everyone around him is dead. His dog's been dead. Lady Gregory is dead. And so he wakes up. He's like, whoa, that wasn't a dream. That was a visitation to the land of the dead. So what happened? How'd you finally get out of it? Oh, man, it was like one of those life-altering experiences. I could never really look at the world the same way again. I mean, how did you finally get out of the dream? My problem is I'm trapped. I keep thinking I'm waking up, but I'm still in the dream. It seems like I'm just going on forever. How do I really wake up? He's like, I don't know. Linklater says to the main character, I'm not very good at that anymore. But if it's what you're thinking, I mean, you probably should. I mean, if you can wake up, you should, because, someday you won't be able to. So just easy, wake up. And he snaps his fingers. And then the next scene, the character wakes up and he goes through the streets a bit more. And then this is the scene where he's trying to grab onto the door handle of the car. and he misses it. He's not able to get it. And then he floats up into nothingness in the sky. And then that's the end of the film. All right. There you go, everybody. So I went through, we watched the film, and then it took us 3 weeks to discuss it. So I spent an entire month on Waking Life, actually. And I like to go slow with it because there's a lot here. And I like to read through it because instead of trying to remember what happened or making notes, we just have the objective content that everyone can look at, and then we can discuss it. And so, yeah. Any final thoughts for you guys? I guess, Jarrell, you haven't seen it
I
yet.
have to watch the movie.
So now you're just like, fuck.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch it. What's it called?
Waking Life,
Waking Life.
2001. Natalia, what do you think? Do you still dislike the film?
No, I understand it more, but I would probably need another round.
I've watched it like 30 times at least. So this is usually the first film that I show for the Philosophy Society. And then the second one would be The Peaceful Warrior. But I switch. It depends on the group. But we went through both of them now meticulously, and we went through Being There. And so the next movie is Gattaca, for sure. That's the next film. And then after Gattaca, or I Heart Huckabees. But Gattaca is, like, again, I'm trying to do the philosophy of like well-being or like mental health. And so Gattaca explains why I'm still here. Like, how did you not give up? You're poor. Yeah, I know. But that's not why I'm doing it, right? There's another reason. And so Gattaca is really good about determination and not giving up, even when society is against you, you know? And
But society's always going to be against you, though, because everyone has an opinion.
well, yeah, sure. But just because people have opinions, they could have opinions that are supportive. They could say, go ahead and decide.
Yeah, philosophy society is good.
Mhm.
It's not against it. That's the
Right.
place we can discuss. And
But I feel like it connects with the cutting the cords of the speaker, right? I feel like society is good. I'm not saying it's bad, but it's just another outlet for people to communicate, which is what he talks about with, like, ultimately not saying that's why society is bad now, but with and I'm not saying this is bad. What I'm saying is, you know, with all like the opinions, like, this is why society got to where society is. And hell is what you make it, in my opinion, because a lot of people could be living, right, but they're not alive, and they're living their own hell because of what they did.
Yeah. Yeah, we can talk about that. Like, we can also capture an innocent person and make them live a hell too. Yeah, it's it's fine. So good. Next week we're gonna do a little bit of Stephen Covey again. We'll go back to our friend Covey. We're gonna do habit 5. Seek first to understand and then be understood. This is the essence of empathy. And it's very useful for many reasons. And so I will get when I do this, it's almost like I get to take a break from preparing for class, because the transcript is like 3 weeks I don't have to do shit, you know? But I have to get the slides ready. So I'll get that ready for next week. And will you be here?
Yeah, hopefully.
She'll be here.
Might
here?
be.
She'll be here.
See what happens.
Okay. Everybody, thank you. And we'll see you again.